Let's take a look at some of the strategy that goes on in Jackfruit. First of all, in general, if you can make a strong hand on the flop, you should set that hand on the top line. Because the top line is multiplied by 5, it makes it worth it to set these hands on the top. Secondly, because the players are dealt 7 cards, the ability to make a strong hand or have a strong draw is high. Try to avoid being dominated on the top line with small draws or small strength made hands, especially when the board is very draw heavy and the value of a made hand strength can decrease by the river. Also in Jackfruit, sometimes you're forced to play defense. If you can't place a very strong hand on the top or middle lines, sometimes you can entirely sacrifice those lines and put a stronger holding on the bottom, preventing a sweep. And lastly, it's okay to gamble to try to win all the lines. Remember, a sweep is worth 30 points. Let's take a look at the following hand for some strategy examples. Here we have a situation where player A is dealt a very strong hand in relation to the flop, and player B has been dealt a very weak hand. This will take some strategy by both players in order to maximize and minimize their wins and losses. For player A, he first has an easy decision to put his full house on the top line, as a full house will score 30 points if he wins for that line. He then places a queen high flush draw in the middle, as if he makes his flush and wins that line, he'll score 15 points. And on the bottom, he puts a decent hand in king high that sometimes can win unimproved. Player B has a much more difficult set of decisions. Much of his hand doesn't interact with the flop at all. So in this case, knowing that he isn't going to make a lot of strong hands, he instead takes the approach of defense. Firstly, he sets his strongest holding, a pair of 6s, on the bottom. This hand fares to win the bottom line a good amount and will give him the best chance to avoid being swept. Now he's left with the decision on whether or not he wants to put his small flush draw on the top line or put it in the middle. Because the board is paired on the top, making a full house possible, and he holds the worst possible flush draw, he chooses not to place this draw on the top but puts it in the middle. Lastly, he takes his remaining 2 cards and puts them on the top. Now that both players have set their hands, it's time for the fun part of Jackfruit. There's a lot of gamble on what comes out on the turn in the river. Let's take a look at the scoring now. Player A wins 30 points for his full house on the top line. Note that if player B had put his flush draw on the top line, he would have been drawing nearly dead. That is, he would have had almost no chance to win. On the middle line, both players make a flush, but player A's hand is higher, and that wins him 15 points. And on the last line, we can see that player B's defensive strategy works out for him. He wins with 2 pair of 9s and 6s versus 1 pair of 9s with an ace-king kicker, scoring 2 points, but more importantly, he prevents the 30-point sweep. So in this hand, player A wins 30 points on the top and 15 points in the middle. Player B wins 2 points on the bottom, so player A wins 43 points total. If player B had placed his 6-6 in any other position, player A would have won an additional 33 points by winning the bottom and would have swept. As you can see, there's a good bit of skill and strategy that goes into playing Jackfruit. It's really important to understand your opponent's tendencies. One good or bad decision can reward you with or cost you a lot of points.